Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm MrTieDye and today I'm going to show you how I draw and tie-dye a guitar tee. So what I'm starting with is a tee that's been soaked in soda ash. It's been spun out so it's just barely damp. And then I've drawn a line diagonally on the t-shirt from the upper shoulder down to the bottom corner here. And I put a few extra marks on here. This here is going to be the top and bottom of my guitar, and I have a midway point here. So what I'm going to start with is I'm just going to pinch the front of the t-shirt right along this line here, and the bottom of the t-shirt right along the line, so that I can pull just the front of the t-shirt forward. The back of the t-shirt, we're going to scrunch that up later. But for now, we want to work on the front, so we get that pulled forward. I try to make sure that I have all the wrinkles out and have it smoothed out. The line just helps me kind of make sure that I have everything lined up correctly here, and the t-shirt straight and flat. So I'm not a musician, so I don't know what all the parts of the guitar are called, but just from looking at pictures of guitars, I can tell that the bottom part of the guitar is about the same length as the stock of the guitar. Sorry. So that's what I'm going to do, is draw this guitar on here. I don't know if I can get the t-shirt smoothed out. So the bottom part, I'm going to make that about 16 inches here. So the width of the guitar has got to be less than that. So I can't make the width more than 8 inches because that's going to make this bottom part square. So I'm going to go to about 6 inches, maybe 5.5 inches. So that's going to make the guitar about 10.5 inches wide. I'm just going to go right to 5 inches. There, we made up our mind. So I'm just going to put a mark on there just to give me a general guideline, and I'm going to put one more a little further up here to give me more guideline, and then I'm going to go down to about 3.5 inches. I'm just kind of eyeballing this, so that's going to kind of be the shape of my guitar here, and then we're going to go all the way up here. So hope this is making sense to you. Normally I do a stencil, and today I was kind of running out of time before I got set up for this video, and I need to get this done, or want to get this done for you guys, so I'm just going to freehand this one. So here we go. So I just kind of draw that up. I have my guideline mark here, and I'm going to swoop it down, swoop it back up, give it a nice hip there, and then bring it down. And then for the top part, you can kind of use your ruler as a nice straight edge on here. Well, the leg of the tripod's in my way. So I'm actually just going to line this up with the shirt and draw my edge up there. So I'm going to put maybe 4 inches for the top part of the guitar, where all the keys are, or whatever they're called. Sorry once again, musicians. And draw that up there. So there is the basic shape of my guitar here, and then we're going to use something round to draw our circle in down here. So I just kind of set this on the t-shirt about halfway, and then you can draw around that. There's my circle. And then I can use another one of these markers here and draw, and I'm making this here just a little bit wider than the circle. bring that down some. Okay, so there is my guitar. So now what we're going to do is fold all of these lines up. So this is going to be a long running accordion fold. So it's just going to take patience to get this folded up. I'm going to fold the outside of the guitar first, and then I'm going to move into the parts of this. But this here is how I do a guitar. Like I say, I haven't done one of these in a while, so that's why I don't have a template made up. But this is how I used to freehand it back in the day. So there was that tight corner I had to fold around. So let me explain what I did here. I do have a video on folding around tight corners. But basically when I end a run on a line, I like to have the end of it be on the downward side here, and that way at the other side, this line here, I can fold it up and around almost at a 45-degree angle to meet up with that. Let me get that lined up straight. So I'm just going to fold this part up and around and line it up right there. And then when I twist that around, then I have my next run going straight out from me here. I'm going to do the same thing here. I have to fold just a little bit of a short fold, but then that last bit of that run there that I went along, the point is going down, so I can fold this other line up and over. And that's just the way that I found easiest to go around tight corners. And that's the main thing, is just finding what's the easiest for you. Hopefully you can figure that out. If my way doesn't work for you, you can find a way that does work for you. Okay, and this is just your basic acoustic guitar. You can change the shape around if you want and make a nice electric guitar. I used to do a whole bunch of these back in the day, but seems like I've just moved on to other things. But since I've had a bunch of requests for them, decided it was time to get in and do a guitar up again. So, and also, since this here was such a long run, I did just a little bit bigger of an accordion fold, because if you have too big of an area with the shorter folds, you risk buckling that up on you, the t-shirt buckling up. And the other thing I'm going to do, I tied right here on the line, but I'm also going to tie on both sides of the line just to give that set of accordion folds some support there. So I just go back and forth on either side of that line, maybe a half to 3/4 of an inch, and then back around the center, and then we'll tie it off there. Okay, so there's the main part of the guitar, and now these pieces then, I can fold these. Like I say, this part here, I usually just pull that up, so I just stick my finger in there and line that up to basically fold that in half. So I'm just lining this corner up with this other corner. And then of course the two side pieces, line those up the same. And then once I have that, then I'm going to just do an accordion fold. The next part is our circle here. That one there, it's already folded in half nice and neatly, so now all I'm going to do is just do a little accordion fold on it. So I can kind of see the line through here, but if you need to, you can hold it up to the light. But since I was pretty straight with my line, I can draw pretty straight just across there. And then the other two, I tied them right on the line, so those are both good there. I can just dye. That's the main thing, is you want to just make sure you know where you're putting your colors at. So then the rest of this, I'm going to separate this out a little bit. So basically right along this fold here, just pulling some of these creases out just a little bit. You just want to make sure that when you're pulling these out, you don't go up past your tie line here. So I'm just pulling some of that excess fabric out of there. Oh, I almost buckled my thing. So you do want to be careful with that. So you can hold this down and kind of pull some of those pieces of fabric up and then scrunch them back down, and that'll just help break up some of this. Since this here's all accordion folded, I'm wanting to scrunch that. So by pulling some of that fabric up out of that fold, then it just allows you to scrunch that up better. But you don't have to. This is just my choice of pulling this up. It does make it kind of bulkier there, and you got to work to get that flattened back out. But I just like a nice scrunch around my guitar. And some of the fabric is wadded up. I got this sleeve that's kind of in an odd place, so I kind of open that sleeve up and scrunch it down inside its own armhole there. And the other sleeve is sticking out here, so I can just scrunch it up where it's at. So once I have the t-shirt all the layers, extra layers, unfolded and flattened out, then I can just scrunch this whole thing up and tie it up. And this is the part where I'm just trying to make sure that all of the fabric is pulled away from my little pieces here. So this here is the circle and this here is the bar. So I just want to make sure that when I'm going to be dyeing these later, that those are separated from the rest of the guitar itself. So I'm just, as I scrunch this up, I'm just making sure to tie things back out of the way. And that way when it comes time to dyeing, I don't have to worry about that, unless I'm just being sloppy with my dye, which that happens too. So there's the guitar, and I'm gonna get some gloves on, and then we'll get some color put on this thing. Okay, it's time to put some color on this thing. So I've decided I'm going to do a purple guitar with blue highlights, or turquoise, and do the t-shirt green. And this one here, I'm going to go with just all regular dye. I'm not going to use any thickened dye on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay purple down, but I'm going to go and leave a white gap so that the dye can spread some on its own up to the line. If you put your dye all the way up to the line, then chances are it's going to immediately spread past the line. So if you leave yourself a little bit of a gap there, and then you can even help seal that gap off a little bit, since I know I'm going to put turquoise highlights around, in the guitar, I'm also going to put a little bit of turquoise around it just to kind of highlight and make it stand out from the t-shirt. So I did the same thing. I left a little bit of a white gap between my line and stuff, and that way both of these colors can slowly spread together there instead of immediately one taking over the other one. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, just so that both of them can be working on spreading while we're dyeing the rest of the tee. So this here is just how before I started using the thick dye, this is how I would control my dye spread spreading is by putting it on and letting it do some spreading on its own first. So I'm going to go ahead and dye the highlights turquoise, get those done right now, and then I'll get the rest of the guitar dyed up. So with this here, the turquoise being lighter than the purple and the fact that they're going to blend nicely, if the turquoise spreads a little bit, I'm not too worried about it. But if I work fastly, I can usually, or quickly, I can get the highlights dyed and then get the purple put on before this turquoise spreads too much. But the purple is going to cover it up anyway. If you're working with a different color highlight here, a contrasting color, then you'd want to do the same thing. Leave that little bit of a white gap there on these here, because see, I can already see my turquoise is spreading past this line right here. But I know that I'm going to put purple over top of that, so I'm not worried about it. So there's times that you need to adjust your dye application according to what colors you're using. So now these here, I can put this right up to the highlight line, and now that both sections are covered in dye, then they shouldn't spread too much more. The liquid is what really wants to travel and just equalize itself within the t-shirt. Unfortunately, there's dye in the liquid, so it carries the dye with it. So we just have to learn how to combat the liquid by working with its natural motion. Okay, now once I get that all put in there, I'm going to use my cuticle pusher just to kind of press that dye in a little bit and help move it around to maybe help encourage this spreading so that I can get that touched up. So on this backside, this is where I think we started, I don't know, but the line is getting, the dye is getting closer to that line, so I may not have to touch it up too much. Sometimes just pushing with the cuticle pusher will help take care of that, because it will move that dye faster this way than just letting it sit and batch. So if you still haven't got a cuticle pusher, why not? They're an excellent tool, or at least something. The main thing I like about the cuticle pusher is it's got this smooth edge on there. So anyway, now I'm going to touch up this line here a little bit, and then I'm going to touch up the turquoise line on this side. So I'm just bringing the two colors together here. And having these bottles with these little fine tips definitely helps with the dye application also, because I can put on just little bits at a time. So before I had thick dye, that was my method of controlling dye, is using these. In fact, I had these even smaller bottles here, but they had that little fine tip on them. I like these ones better because it holds 4 ounces of dye compared to 1 or 2 ounces, and it still has the fine tip. So I'll put a link to these bottles. These are from Amazon, so I'll put a link in my description box down below this video. Okay, so there's my purple guitar with the blue highlights and blue outline around it. Now the rest of this, I'm going to dye all of it green. I'm going to start with a light color of green, and then I'm going to put a darker color over top of it. Okay, there's the guitar all dyed up. The other thing, I dyed them, the top and the bottom, the same way on this here. With the way that it was folded up, I mean, the kind of at a diagonal, and the back of the T and part of the top and the bottom all kind of scrunched up. It's not a nice even fold over there. So I dyed them the same way with the light green and dark green on both places. If you try to dye one side one color and another side another color, you're going to end up with this awkward looking color scheme. There's going to be a kind of patches in different places. This here is going to be a more overall nice scrunch design because I dyed them the same way. So anyways, I'm going to let this batch for 48 hours and then I'll be back probably in about 2 seconds with your results. Thank you.